Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to the Front Row Movie Reviews, the podcast for people who actually like movies. And we are here with another full disclosure, a full review of a recently released film. And in fact, recently, as of, I guess, Tuesday, this came out. We're here to talk about Transformers 5 The Last Knight. With me to talk about this is actually a person who just kind of joined us for the first time when we were looking at Transformers, the 1986 cartoon movie. And,
also known as the good one.
Exactly. And because he is the one guy around that we know that actually knows Transformers pretty well, and he's the only guy that I know who's actually also seen the movie, he's with me today. So, introduce yourself again, sir. Good.
Hi, everybody. It's Mike.
Hi, it's Mike. And I'm Scott. So, before we get into this, first things first, this is a full review of this movie. It's only been out for a few days. Judging by the box office, you haven't seen it. But if you plan on seeing it, be sure to leave now because we will be spoiling the shit out of it. And we will be spoiling starting in 3, 2, and 1. No one dies except for Anthony Hopkins.
How can you spoil that which has no plot?
Well, usually we joke that somebody dies. It started with, Marvel Avengers Age of Ultron, and they started by saying Quicksilver dies. Well, no one actually dies in this, do they? Except for Anthony Hopkins?
A bunch of Decepticons that they took the time to give little one-shot scenes and actually names, and then just immediately.
You mean Transformers Suicide Squad?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because that's what this movie needed, was a tie-in to that. All right, well, first let me give...
It won awards, dude.
Which ones?
Yes, Suicide Squad. I don't know why, but it won awards.
Yes, don't remind me. The first comic book franchise to get an award was not Marvel, it was the DCU. Great, thanks. Thank you, Academy. We appreciate it.
No. Thank you, Will Smith.
I'm sure you'll nominate this for Best Special Effects, too.
And Margot Robbie's ass.
Well, I'd nominate Margot Robbie's ass, but that's just me.
Really though? Anyway, go on.
Okay, so I'm going to give a brief synopsis it's 11:30 at night, and I wrote this 5 seconds ago, so that's what this is. We start with King Arthur, yes, in a Transformers movie, fighting off the Saxons. To light his darkest hour, 12 Transformers under the command of Merlin form a giant 3-headed dragon that no one will remember after they kill Arthur's foes. Flash forward to the world where Marky Mark is living in a junkyard, Transformers are devastating our world, and no one outside the movie's cast seems to care about it. Explosions happen, Optimus is bad, Optimus is good, Cybertron moves into Earth's orbit again, and we learn that Earth is Unicron, which I still don't understand. Now, good, but still murderous Optimus, and the rest of the gang fight Quintessa, the bad guy of the film that no one really cared about until the very end, and Megatron's army of 5 guys, as Megan Fox's twin goes after a staff to do plot stuff. She gets the staff, and 2 minutes later, literally 2 minutes later, the movie is over. That's my synopsis, sir.
I think you nailed it.
Okay, that's about all I could get out of it. So, Mike, give me your first impressions of Transformers The Last Knight, please, sir.
I can distinctly remember that my first impression was, holy shit, do I have a massive headache? So I went to the they called it Optimus Prime Time event at the movie theater. I was lured in by the by the allure of a free T-shirt and a free small popcorn. So basically a $4,000 value. And it was
only $1 of that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for hanging the lamplight on my joke.
You're welcome. That's what I do here.
Yeah. And it was IMAX 3D, so I got the full-on, this is what Michael Bay intended experience, which was this massive eye strain and the urge to kill other humans. I don't know. That movie ended, and I was quite frankly sort of bewildered by the sheer explosion-y spectacleness of it, which was a good thing. and also by the Bostonian man banging pots and pans directly into my ears while cruel 3D glasses played tricks with my brain. Yeah, I walked out and I was like, I don't know what I think of what I just saw. I'm pretty sure it's not good. But I mean, like all of these movies, there was stuff to enjoy, and there was also a lot of stuff to want to crucify Hollywood with. So there you go.
Is it really all of Hollywood's problem, or is it just
I'm pretty sure.
Problem?
What's that?
Is it really all of Hollywood's problem, or just a few people's problems?
Anymore, I'm beginning to feel like it's indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of the stuff that I have a problem with, I feel like appears in movie after movie after movie, and I don't care enough about it to like draw the conspiracy theorist like yarn web on my wall about like what common people are ruining all of these movies and franchises.
Yeah.
if there are any, but
I feel I have to point out this is pretty important. I think this is panning out with the box office. But Mike is the one guy I know who actually likes most of these movies.
You say that.
Okay, you don't hate them.
Our relationship status would be it's complicated. Yes.
Okay. You like the first one, so do I. I think the first one was fine. I can't remember. Did you like Darker Than not Darker Than the Moon? It was what's Revenge of the Fallen?
No, that one I did not care for.
You like Darker Than the Moon though. Darker Than the Moon is the one you forced me to go see a second time.
Okay. So first, okay. Joe Pesci. I gotta tell you, man, my opinions of these movies have actually changed a bit over time.
Okay.
And it's a lot because of as a super fan, and I call myself a super fan, the initial excitement of the fact that it's a thing that exists and it's a version of the thing that I love, and we could get into that in a little bit, but then I don't know, like reality starts to set in, and quite honestly, I actually kind of dislike the first movie a lot more than I used to.
Really? Okay.
After repeated watching, and it's for many of the same reasons like that I have problems with all of them, and it's if we get into it like in short, it's the stupid lowbrow out of place humor and the constant introduction of totally unnecessary characters and plot points. This movie was full of them. The first movie was full of them. The second movie, the one I hate the most, was almost entirely 100% made up of them. And then we get into like 3 and 4 and 5. And the best I can tell you is I feel like there's a movie that I would really enjoy watching in there somewhere. 3 was definitely that way. 4 was definitely that way. I feel like 4 consisted of 2 separate movies. One was horrible and included Stanley Tucci, and the other one actually made somewhat sense and could have been super cool. And that was the whole storyline with Kelsey Grammer.
So basically, the half an hour of the movie that was good.
Yeah.
Maybe it was an hour.
It was maybe an hour. It was maybe an hour. But, and I kind of feel like that's sort of the same way with this one. I feel like there's a lot of parts of this movie that should have, I don't know, they could have been better. They really played up on a couple of like nice scenes in this movie where Mark Wahlberg, there's a deal where like he can't talk to his daughter because he's on the run from the law, but he's like doing this higher calling deed to like help the Transformers because he recognizes their plight as being like homeless aliens. And I'm like, there's heart in that story, and I actually think there are a couple of scenes in there. Like there's an interaction between him and Hound that I'm like, where
is Hound John Goodman?
Run with this. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, fucking run with this story. What is all this other bullshit about flying drones and like Mark Wahlberg and his sidekick like running through a derelict city? Like, honestly,
at least the sidekick survived the whole time, though.
Well, as far as we know. But yeah, so you get what I'm saying, though? I'm like, there's just so much unnecessary crap fluff covering up what somebody could have made into a good movie if they tried.
No, I completely agree with you on that. And that's the one that I noticed when watching this is This is the shortest of the movies, I believe, or if not, it's one. It's very
I think
close
it
to the
is.
shortest.
I think it is.
It's only a little over 2 hours, whereas an Age of Extinction was, I think, the longest, and that thing was almost 3 hours long. It was like 2:45. And one thing I noticed is a lot of that humor that is completely just terrible. I go back to Sam's mom eating weed brownies in part 2 and stuff like that.
Yep, there you go. Sam's parents, honestly, the whole character of Shia LaBeouf was for the most part garbage in those three movies.
We find out in this movie in an offline that he is dead now, right? Is that how I got that? Because they said that the Witwickies were actually a group of, Transformers supporters or something, and Hopkins' character was the last one. And we saw a picture of Sam in like the room, so he was on the team.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm assuming that means he's dead.
I didn't make that actual connection, but
I want to make that connection, sir.
I kind of do because. All right, here you go. So in the first movie, the FBI agents come to their house and scan it for radiation. So there you go. Sam hung out with a bunch of Transformers for 3 years and fucking died of cancer.
There's a movie for you. Transformers 6. Sam is having chemo.
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't make that connection at the time, but hey, kudos to you.
I'm all for Sam just being dead. But no, so there is definitely really bad humor. I go to Michael Bay trying to be smart when it comes to like the sheriff on the Indian reservation and saying, "You calling me chief is mildly racist." I'm like, Bay, you can't do that when you know you're mildly racist.
Oh man, quite frankly, I thought that was one of the better jokes that they put in this movie. I mean, the kind of stuff that I'm usually talking about is, again, the
old ladies with tea.
What's that? Yeah,
the old ladies with tea.
The implication of sex. Let's see what else we got in here.
I don't know. Marky Mark could be chased.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't even want to go there. I don't know what that was about. That was like some kind of weird Michael Bay fantasy where nobody had touched his prospective woman.
Real quick, by the way, speaking of Michael Bay's women, I've come to the conclusion, and I said this in the synopsis, Michael Bay has a type. Yeah. Even the 14-year-old kid has the high cheekbones, and I realized right then that is Michael Bay's type, because every single female character in this, it's not a robot, or is not like, older than 30, in every one of his movies has looked like Megan Fox in every one of them. I mean, when she's not in it. And this one's even worse, because when you see this one, for a couple scenes, I'm thinking that is Megan Fox for a while, with a British accent.
Yeah, I would buy that for this one. I actually don't remember who the female lead was, if there even was one in number 4.
I think it was a blonde, wasn't it?
Or 3.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know either, but sure, I'll go with that.
But yeah, Michael Bay's a creep. That's basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And he tries to break type on this again. Like you like the chief joke, but same idea. He tries to break type in the fact that he has this, this woman that looks like he wants every woman in the world to look, and they point out, oh, she's a doctor, a philosopher, and all that stuff. They're like, ooh, look, this one's smart, unlike the last one that was sitting on a car for 2 movies. But I'm just like, dude, the first thing you show is her legs and ass. So
he makes this weird, vain attempt to like mislead people as if it fools anyone at all. Like, oh, even Megan Fox, oh, she's really like good with her hands and machines and stuff. Like, there's more going on than that. But yeah,
aside from fixing Bumblebee the first time, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, well, she supported her dad who was in prison. So I mean, he tries to like take this really thin veneer of like strong female character and just like paint it onto this supermodel looking chick that he is already way over sexualized.
Yeah, I mean, fine. She's an attractive professor. I get that. Great. Yeah. She's Merlin's offspring, which was really Da Vinci Code wrapped into a Transformers movie, but that's
a little bit. Well, and I'll throw this out there too. If you've watched, and I do not recommend this, but if you've watched the Michael Bay Turtles films, I got to tell you, I was actually really surprised with the first one.
I liked the first one.
I thought it was.
It wasn't like amazing, but I liked it.
Okay.
I haven't seen the second one. I haven't seen the second one.
Don't bother. Yeah, no, don't bother. No, but I was going to say the point about the first one I was trying to make was the fact that Megan Fox was in it, as the main female lead. And I was actually compared to every Transformers movie, and I do mean every Transformers movie except maybe 4, because again, I can't even remember who that was. Uh, I actually thought he did not sexualize Megan Fox hardly at all in the first Turtles movie. There were like very few, if any, gratuitous shots. There may have been one between her and Will Arnett, but I I don't know why I'm making this point, but I just remember it vividly that I walked out of the theater and like kind of turned to my wife and we were both like, "Huh, that was weird."
It's okay. He made up for it in the second one, which I have not seen, but I saw the trailer over and over again where she was wearing the Britney Spears outfit.
He definitely did make up for it in the second one. So anyway, there's that.
Where were we?
I don't even remember. Mark Wahlberg was definitely an upgrade from Sam. That's my takeaway.
I think he was in Age of Extinction too. I mean, I saw Age of Extinction one time in the theater, and that's the only time I've ever seen it. And I thought it was way too long, but I agree with you. It had moments.
There's always this stuff with like, I mean, you go back to the first movie, and it was like the female hacker and Anthony Anderson, I think it was, and they're like weird.
The walking black stereotype?
Yes. Had no point, no purpose in that entire movie. I'm sure that Sam's parents in the first one, and then for some reason they thought, hey, let's put more of that in the second movie.
Let's double down on the second one.
Is the third movie, I don't quite remember what it was. There was some government agent chick that was hyper annoying. They keep bringing John Turturro back, and I guess he likes money because he keeps coming back.
Was that some kind of political statement about Cuba? I mean, I know Cuba. The joke is that since Cuba hasn't been able to import cars since the 60s, all their cars are from the 60s. But is there a reason why they don't have war in Cuba?
I cannot figure out what the premise of that joke was, but I did think it was kind of funny.
So okay, well, going off like the length and stuff too, I agree with you that the jokes for the most part, as usual, are pretty terrible. But I think like the first one and the fourth one, and maybe the third one, I don't remember. I honestly don't remember the third one much, except for the fact that it had really bad JFK CGI in the first 5 minutes, and Leonard Nimoy is not good or something.
Yeah.
But there are parts in this movie that could make a good movie. I think the idea of covert Transformers throughout the time, as much as it makes no goddamn sense, is a kind of fun idea. We finally get Bumblebee as a Volkswagen.
I agree with you. I actually had an argument with one of my other buddies about this. I actually appreciated that idea, and his whole the crux of his argument was all about well, that changes the story. And I'm like, well, yeah, man, but I didn't go to the movie theater to watch G1 cartoons in live action form. I'm part of the beauty of the Transformers franchise is that they, with almost every cartoon series, they sort of reinvent themselves and go about it with a different approach. And I'm with you. I actually thought the whole premise of Transformers hidden throughout our history was kind of cool.
And the fact that Bumblebee killed a lot of Nazis was positive too.
Hey, always.
But if you want to complain about that, going back to what your friend had an issue with, if you want to complain about that, let's go to what I argue is the best Transformers cartoon of all time that I've seen. That's Beast Wars, and they were there at the dawn of mankind. So the Transformers have always kind of been in history, even though you don't know they're in history. I mean, without Dinobot, we wouldn't have man. So what do you got?
Yes, and even though that series actually, funnily enough, did connect directly to the original cartoon.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm getting at. So you can milk the timeline as much as you want, especially when, and I'm just more about this than I do, I'm sure. But there's isn't there a Transformers multiverse at this point? They've said it's multiple dimensions and stuff.
I mean, if they even put that name, well, they do actually kind of put that name on it in the latest comic books. They talk a lot about parallel universes, but over time, there's been all kinds of crazy little one-shot deals where they've just been like, hey, let's do. My favorite is that let's do Transformers in the Industrial Revolution age, and so you've got
Transformers.
Yeah, and so you've got Bumblebee hanging out with John Henry I mean, that was that. I'm not joking. That was literally it. And it was kind of awesome. Like all of the Autobots, or most of the Autobots, turned into trains and train cars and like linked up with one another and went steaming down the railroad to go fight the Decepticons.
Tell me they made a big combiner giant train.
They did not.
Oh, come on. They gotta
But Shockwave turned into a world, like a pre-Civil War Ironside steamship, which was freaking badass.
I was waiting for the submarine in this movie to transform sooner or later.
I was too. Yeah.
I did like the character was just dumbass, stupid, but I did like the World War I tank transformer being in there, just because it was kind of interesting.
I thought it was actually really funny. There were probably, I don't know if I can say probably, there were almost definitely more different, unique robots in this movie than any of the others, even though most of them went unnamed and appeared like for like a scene.
Well, like the Minotaur looking guys that Optimus immediately decapitates. I didn't even know where those guys came from. They just kind of showed up.
Yeah, they were the Quintessa's guards.
Okay.
Did you catch the part where like the really big one that they showed with her several times split into the 5 littler ones, and then Optimus chopped all their heads off?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay, yeah.
So
they were just like,
for the longest time, I was thinking that those were some of the knights, but obviously it wasn't. It was somebody else.
Yeah, they looked very similar, but
yeah.
But yeah, there was at least one that caught my eye in the scene where they all evacuate from Cade's junkyard. There was like a big yellow construction guy that was back there. He bared I think a lot of them were like kit bashes of characters from previous films.
Sure.
Got like hacked together, but he was like a big yellow construction vehicle of some kind.
Well, they even had a callback to the first one with Barricade showing up again. I don't think he's been in any movies since the first one.
He was in.
Was he in 2?
He was in 3, I think.
Oh, okay. He just kind of keeps coming. And, of course, Starscream's head shows up.
Yeah, they like to do that, too. I think there were other heads in there that I was supposed to recognize, but, like, between the 3D glasses and...
Well, that's the thing, though, with the argument with Michael Bay Transformers movies. Anyway, you can't recognize them anyway because they all have the same kind of facial features. I mean...
there's a lot going on. If you actually look at the designs, they're quite different. But when you see them in high speed on a film with explosions happening behind them, like
with a migraine,
yeah, it's tough to see.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you on that. The one joke I always have with these movies, and they do it again at the end of this one, is Optimus is always calling in reinforcements, and they never show up. I mean, in this one, I mean, we had pods dropping left and right at the beginning of the movie. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, there's going to be tons of these guys.
Yeah.
It's the same 2 Japanese guys from the last one. Hound from part 2 or 3 or whatever.
It's 4, yeah.
And then obviously Bumblebee and Optimus after the fact, and I guess a couple in the background. But
Haturad, I can't do a French accent.
I'm waiting for Craig. Craig will never watch this, but I'm waiting for Craig to see what they do with Haturad.
Yeah.
What is with the stasis power, by the way? Can you explain that to me? Because
I cannot. I actually didn't. I mean,
it's interesting power.
It was, yeah. I mean, it made him unique. Well, the thing I have a problem with most of these movies, and it's funny because I think I said this to you before you even saw it. I was like, look for all the spots where they try to kind of retcon things and make it make sense, and then all the spots where they then promptly like throw that out the window and ruin it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like as you mentioned, it's like going from movie 1 to movie 2. It's like all of a sudden there are a bunch of different Autobots that have appeared out of thin air.
Yeah,
but then. And that's fine. They crash landed and linked up with Optimus and whatever. But then you go to like Barricade dying and then coming back and then dying again, because I'm pretty sure he dies again in movie 3, and now he's back again in a different form. and then like let's see what else. Oh,
he has to have, yeah.
And then Hot Rod in this one. Okay, they've established Hot Rod has appeared for the first time in movie 5. And yet they've established in the timeline that he has been there with Bumblebee, in fact, since the 40s. And it's like, okay, where was he for the last however long? And like, okay, he was keeping a low profile or whatever, but like when Cybertron appeared in Earth's orbit, they didn't think like, man, maybe I should go check in with my homies and see what's going on with that.
When Cybertron appears in Earth's orbit for the second time.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's keep that in mind. This is a plot point that was used in part 3.
You know what? And I agree. And what I thought is kind of weird and sad about that fact, I'm glad it wasn't Unicron, although we'll talk about that in a minute.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
What I actually thought was, I mean, in movie 3, one of the things about that movie that I did enjoy was that it was all a big homage to some episodes from the original cartoon series, which were like I think it was like oh, man, somebody's gonna angry Twitter me after this. It's like the Ultimate Weapon or something like that, or the Ultimate Doom. But it was like a 3-part or 4-part cartoon storyline about Megatron teleporting Cybertron into Earth's orbit so they could pillage Earth and steal all its resources and stuff. So like movie 3 being that storyline was kind of cool to me. And then the first time you see it, I'm like, all right, that's really neat. And then the second time, like somebody just fired up the engine and decided to drive it to Earth instead of teleport it, and I'm like, what?
And by the way, they mention, and this is just me being a science nerd and not liking that. And I might have a very long rant about science. And
here we go. I know exactly what you're going to say.
But what they said, the Cybertron was hiding behind our sun, playing the whole Planet X thing.
Yeah.
And it was moving at a tenth the speed of light. Okay, light moves from the sun to the Earth in 8 minutes. Okay, so a tenth the speed means in 80 minutes Cybertron would show up, and it took like what, 4 days?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, just point that out.
It also didn't completely pulverize our planet simply by showing up in our solar system.
I did like, and it hits the moon again. I don't understand it. And then they said there's 2 moons. I'm pretty sure the moon just got obliterated.
What do they have against the moon? I don't understand.
I did like the fact that they had a callback to part 3 where they had that ship there getting busted up again.
Yeah. Well, so okay, there you go. There's some of the like weird retconning where they like try half-heartedly to make things make sense or like connect the dots.
And my biggest gripe to that, because you mentioned it, like you said before I saw the movie, you said look for that retconning. They tried to do that with Optimus.
Yep.
They tried desperately to do that with Optimus, where they said, okay, they make him Nemesis Prime, which I think is actually a toy, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
It's like Black Optimus Prime.
Nemesis
yeah.
Is appeared lots of times in various continuities and things.
So they made him into an evil guy for a minute until Bumblebee gets his voice box back again, which I don't understand either, but whatever.
Yep, there's another one.
I must have looked away from the film for 5 seconds because I'm pretty sure he didn't have a voice box, and then he did.
It's not even the first time.
Well, no, he got in the first movie. He started talking.
Yeah, at the end of the first movie, I think it was, he asked for permission to hang out with Sam at the end of the movie. So it's like, Bumblebee doesn't have a voice box, and they like to make a point of that for like silly fluff scenes right up until the point when they decide to just fuck all of that and try to make it.
There's explicit. Yeah.
It's not even the first one in this episode. But yeah, same.
But yeah, so they make him bad, and then they bring him back with the aid of Bumblebee's immaculate voice, whatever. And at that point, they're kind of playing off the whole Optimus went down a dark road to a point where he like turned completely, and now he's coming back, and he's going to be the true Optimus that we all care about. And then he starts killing things again and saying, "I'm going to kill you," and then he stabs that one dude in the face. And I mean, it's like,
I agree. I mean, I don't even know how to just explain it because I'm with you, but it's like, okay, I get it. Like, war is hell, blah blah blah. Like, if you're trying to make it this impactful movie about robots that are desperately fighting each other to survive, then like, Optimus is going to kill other robots.
Sure.
But the way that they go about it is so flagrant. My biggest problem actually isn't the fact that he kills other robots. It's the fact that none of it feels like it matters.
Yeah.
Good guys or bad guys. They all just kind of instantly die with the blink of an eye. And it just doesn't feel like it matters.
Well, and they even made a joke about it when he's doing his first of 2 frilly speeches. And they even joke about the fact that they love his speeches. Okay.
Yeah.
So this guy's supposed to be higher up than anyone else in terms of morality or whatever. I did notice though that this is probably the first movie where they realize we're going to bring Megatron back, so we maybe shouldn't kill him every movie. So this time he just kicks him out of the ship and he flies away.
Yes, they pulled a total Transformers the animated movie on him. Is what they did. He got tossed right through, the wall of some place not Unicron, but yeah, same idea.
Cybertron, kinda.
Well, I like that they made absolutely zero effort to explain how he was even alive in his current form in this movie.
Yeah, because wasn't he Galvatron in the last one?
In the last one,
he was mindless.
His severed head was in a laboratory at Stanley Tucci's company, and then somehow downloaded that brain into the body of what was supposed to be a mindless drone.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, could apparently explode his body into like nanomites and then reassemble. You remember that?
Yeah, we never saw that again.
Nope, that went away. Thank God. But yeah, and so at the end of that movie, he ran off, calling himself Galvatron with a bunch of other dudes.
Hey, they did take a page out of the 1986 movie though, because just like Ultra Magnus, now Bumblebee can be ripped apart and pulled back together.
Which also made absolutely no sense and had no point in the entire film besides that one scene.
Well, and the point was that you were to think that Bumblebee was going to get his ass completely destroyed in the last part of the movie, because even in the trailers you saw stuff flying off of him and everything. So they had to give a reason for him to be back to normal. Even Optimus, he has like this scar in his face where Quintessa smacked him or something,
yeah,
and then he can like repair himself.
Yeah, I don't even know. Well, the Bumblebee thing was just stupid. Like, I don't even understand why they did that in that early scene in the movie, because it never came into effect.
Well, and they tried in the trailer, and it actually worked. Is in the trailer you see who turns out to be Canopy, bleeding out from the mouth, and you're thinking, oh man, Bumblebee's going to die in this thing or get really beat up. It's not even Bumblebee, but he's made to look just like Bumblebee.
Yeah, a fair bit.
I mean, so if you're watching the trailer, you assume that character is Bumblebee. So
maybe.
I did, I guess.
Okay, well, fair enough.
He was yellow and he had the face. I don't know.
But yeah, it's the usual Michael Bay-ish. I don't know. Again, I've been a little bit careful to criticize Bay in all of this stuff because I think it's more guilty. The writing is the most guilty part of this whole thing.
And let's get into that, because they were very big on the fact that they were going to make a franchise out of this, and they're already talking about making Bumblebee spinoff, which is going to be in the 80s.
Yep. They're not just talking about it. It's already like happening starting in August.
Yeah. So they're going to be doing that, and so they put together a writing room, much like the Ghostbusters franchise did, and that worked so well.
Yeah.
So they put together this writing room, and these aren't slouches. The guy from Walking Dead, Spielberg. Who else was in this writing room? It was a ton of people.
I mean, I don't even know. I don't know how much stock to put in it, because when I read that list, it was literally like every Hollywood writer I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much any of them actually contributed.
I truly hope none of it, because if this is what they came up with, we're in trouble for a lot of other stuff too.
I agree, and I think my comment about this to somebody was like, watching this film, one thing about it that it resonated with me is the fact that not only do they not know how to write for a non-human character, they don't know how to write for human characters either.
No, not at all. I mean, the scene on the submarine where they're like, is this romantic? I'm like, not really, no. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of, I will say that too, a lot of the humor that they tried to put in this movie just fell flat, because it was like trying not to be the usual brand of humor that's been in these movies, which consists largely of dick jokes. And yet every single time it almost definitely did become just that. Or it became somebody frantically screaming at the screen who you were supposed to think was funny, because that's another thing that they love to do.
The sidekick character was all about that.
There you go.
You answered an ad on Craigslist to be a vice president of some such and such, and you're surprised that you're getting screwed?
It made no sense. I'll throw the same thing into the Cogsworth character, who I actually still sort of liked.
I don't get him, but he was funny, kinda.
Well, and kind of is exactly right. He had all these. Okay, what's the deal with them having to always make every character turn in or like degenerate into a babbling buffoon who's sometimes violent and sometimes just whatever? Like they had this character who was like this crusty old Transformer butler or whatever, who's
super strong,
who had a few clever lines and blah blah blah. But yeah, and then they had to throw in the like, oh, you son of a blah, and he like flips out and goes psychotic beyond the point of any reason that makes any sense whatsoever. And like, could they have just not done that?
I will give him this, just because at this point it didn't matter, and if it was a serious movie, I wouldn't like it. But when he's playing the organ as the with the exposition going on, I thought that was funny. Now when
and I agree. I actually
they took it too far.
Oh, of course it did, but I actually thought that was funny and kind of clever. Him flipping out and throwing Mark Wahlberg through an elevator was not funny. Him flipping out again in the study and attacking Mark Wahlberg for no reason, also not funny. Like, why? Why do that? Why do you have to turn every character into that? Poor Anthony Hopkins, Jesus Christ. Like, they had this guy who's like this mysterious keeper of secrets. I'm like, all right, cool. All right, all good. And then the first time he meets Mark Wahlberg, he's like,
dude,
gives this super weird babbling speech that I swear to God was him not knowing his lines, and they just went with it.
And I got to tell you, Anthony Hopkins, and I've always liked him. Obviously, his work as Hannibal is great and all that. But if you watch, and I know you do, if you watch Westworld, this man is an amazing actor.
Absolutely.
And the scene where he's at the restaurant and he's just intimidating the CEO of the company and just scaring the hell out of her with his looks. He doesn't even say anything. Yeah. This guy's an amazing actor, and this is what you give him.
And that's what I said. Like, they had a character who should have just been the thing that they wrote him to be. The, like, super wise keeper of secrets guy who's sort of like
Captain Exposition.
The protector of the world. And yeah, exactly. And what did they do with him? They turned him into a buffoon in a couple of scenes just because.
The one thing I will say, though, I assumed from the first trailer that Anthony Hopkins was going to be evil. He was going to turn out to be something else, because they always do that too. They actually didn't do that this time. He stayed good the whole time, even when he took some lead to the chest. He stayed good.
Yeah, it's true. But, it's like they just can't help themselves. As much as Bay can't help himself about putting slow motion and explosions and high cheekbone chicks into his movies, it's like whoever writes these films can't help themselves but like turn every character into the same person or the same just bizarre nonsensical thing
because it's funny and cool,
because somebody thinks it's funny.
Well, and you can see the same thing in a lot of Michael Bay movies. Look at Armageddon. The Russian astronaut from Armageddon. It's the same idea.
Yes, I agree. Not as bad as these films, but yes. I don't know. I see that. I haven't watched Armageddon in quite a while, and I actually enjoy that movie.
Yeah. But I mean, those characters are there, and I think part of it is Michael Bay's direction of these folks.
It could be.
It's also the writing, too.
It could be that it's not in the script and he wants these scenes added. I can't say. I don't know. But they all have the same problem, which does make me think that Bay is in some way responsible for it, because the writers have certainly changed hands several times.
Yeah.
The other problem I have is that with the first several movies, it was Kurtzman and Orky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they went on to do Star Trek. And guess what? All that same shitty, stupid humor ended up in the first Star Trek reboot. Another movie which, admittedly, I actually enjoy, but it's full of shit stuff that doesn't belong there.
It got a lot better when Simon Pegg wrote the script for the third one.
Yeah,
I think third is the best one of the three.
Yeah, and it has its problems also.
But Kurtzman is now somewhat involved in Discovery, so I'm kind of worried about that too.
Like I said, and it just seems like there are certain things that plague Hollywood these days, and it's, and I can't.
He also did The Mummy.
Yeah, so I haven't seen that yet either, but yeah, I can't say for sure who's responsible or if it's a bunch of people, but they need to stop it.
Well, speaking of bad writing, let's talk about Unicron, please, because I want to hear your theory on this. Help me out. Earth is Unicron. Go.
You're gonna be surprised by what I say here. I think.
Go.
Actually, in the spirit of the franchise, occasionally reinventing itself and doing a different thing with similar themes. Actually, as a concept, I don't have a problem with it. It could be clever in the hands of good writing. And there's actually a precedent for it, because the animated series Transformers Prime, I don't know that they ever really directly connected the dot to, hey, the Earth is Unicron, but they sure tried. I don't know if they ever came right out and said it, but it was definitely there, to the point that they found, in that series, and I'm getting off track a little bit, they found Dark Energon here on Earth, and Optimus was like, what is that doing here? That doesn't make any sense. And Dark Energon was also known as the blood of Unicron. So there's precedent for that. There's potentially a good story there if they did it right. It did explain why Transformers kept coming to Earth, which was initially the whole point of Anthony Hopkins talking to Mark Wahlberg. But yeah, I don't know. It's a little early to say what's actually going to become of this now.
Well, and they're going to play off of it supposedly with that credit scene.
Yeah, totally.
Now, of course, they've done that before, where they throw something and just completely ignore it. But so it also is, Cybertron didn't go away this time, right? Cybertron's still there.
This is one of these things that I get confused by, because
part of it was the movie ends like immediately.
Well, which is funny because that's my exact criticism of the '86 movie. But these movies do not keep track of themselves. There is apparently no person who's responsible for continuity.
No shit.
And shocking, I know. And so, to be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea what happens to Cybertron at the end of this movie. They don't show it. As far as I know, it is still there.
It's not that big, for one. I mean, it's about the size of the moon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not huge, but I mean, they don't show it, like in part 3. They show it disappearing through the wormhole or whatever, and it's gone.
It goes back to wherever it came from.
It goes back to traveling to Earth, obviously, because that's how
I guess. Yeah.
But
by the way, apparently the Quintessa wasn't there when that happened. I don't know.
She got the idea, I guess.
Yeah,
she saw Sentinel Prime and said, "This is smart. I like this."
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, and then the Quintessa thing, I just don't understand. She's obviously just a MacGuffin. I get that, but
she's a play on the Quintessons, obviously, which were in some continuities described as the creators of the Transformers. So okay, but yeah, for the most part, I'm going to agree with you and say that as far as this movie goes, she was nothing more than a plot device, MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
They ran out of villains.
Well, did they ever really have any good ones aside from Megatron? I mean, the Fallen was
in the movies, no. In the comic books, there were certainly plenty, but
well, I mean, again, and this comes from watching YouTube videos and reading Wikipedia mainly, but they do have a lot of good stuff they could play off with the Unicron thing, because like you have the whole idea where Unicron is one of the two, and they said this in the movie a little bit, yin and yang, where Unicron is the constant evil to the constant good of Primus. Is that right?
Correct. And in most continuities, Cybertron is revealed to be Primus. But
so we're the bad guys.
Given that Cybertron looks like it does, well, again, it's these movies, so literally anything is possible.
Yeah, whatever the writers room wants to come up with.
No sense next time.
So the kind of going off the whole making no sense. Go ahead.
Well, I thought of this earlier, like when I first saw the movie, and then I kind of forgot. But so the whole premise was, Cybertron shows up, one has to suck the other one dry in order to survive. So in a way, Megatron may have been the good guy, if in fact it was Cybertron, aka Primus, who was going to kill Unicron, who is the ultimate evil in the universe.
Yeah, sure. All we know for sure is Unicron's eyeball or anus is Stonehenge. That's all I got. and he's got what, 16 horns? That's all I know about Unicron.
Yep.
And they grow. Sure.
6 horns, I think. Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't even know. They tried to say that the horns came out of the Earth because of changes in gravity that apparently didn't affect anything else on Earth. But
it sure didn't affect that space station until it ran it over like a squirrel in a road.
Well, like I said, the fact that I'm pretty sure any scientist would tell you that Cybertron, something the size of our moon showing up spontaneously in our solar system, let alone like closer to Earth than the moon, would have just completely fucked our planet in the first place.
long before it got to that close to the moon. But
Yeah,
yes,
totally.
well, and that's okay. And thank you for finally giving me a transition point. I was trying to make one up and it didn't work. But science is just completely ignored in this film, obviously.
Yeah. Could somebody?
And the dude from Veep is in there as
Thank you. Tony Hale.
the jackass scientist. They actually quote my favorite author, Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yes.
And that was a theme of this movie. As much as they don't have themes, this one was actually a theme, was magic versus science, or faith versus science. Okay, fine, got that. But then they obviously turn towards the faith side of things immediately because they make the physicist look like an idiot the whole time. There's not one thing he does that's redeemable aside from just looking stupid.
No, he was actually a character that I absolutely just wanted to punch in the face the entire time, and that's sad because he's Buster from Arrested Development, and that show's amazing.
He's one of the positive things about Veep. There's not many positive things about Veep, but he's one of them. But they're trying to go with this whole, believing in something outside of what is known as fact and everything else, which is all fine and dandy. But don't try to quote Arthur C. Clarke when you don't know what the hell the man was saying.
It was a pretty weak theme if that's what they were going for. In fact, I didn't even put that together until you just said it. I'm not convinced it was intentional.
Well, whatever it was, it pissed me off because
yeah.
The whole idea, it's not magic. They even pointed out Merlin wasn't magical. He was a drunkard who, for some reason, got a staff. So if you're going to go off that, play off the fact that this is advanced science and we don't understand it, fine. But you're trying to make it sound like this tech isn't really tech. It is mythical and magical, and our science be damned, science isn't going to work. We need this magic. But it's science that's doing it. It's just incoherent theming. I don't understand.
I agree with you. It is incoherent because that is a little bit of the mythos of Transformers is the fact that they don't really even know where they came from. So in some regards, to them, it's even magic, what the Quintessa can do. But, the whole thing is, as you said, so incoherent, so rambling that it just, if it's a theme, I think it's an accidental theme more than anything. I really do.
Yeah, sure.
Some draft of the script from way back had it better.
You assume there was a script, sir.
Yeah. Fun note about that. I don't know if you've ever watched 30 Rock. I don't know. Man, we're going late here. There's an episode of 30 Rock where there's this big thing about automation stealing jobs, and I think Liz Lemon, Tina Fey's character, goes on sort of a walkabout where she's been threatened that they don't need writers anymore because people will pay for anything. And anyway, she's walking down the street and encountering all these figures of past fads that have gone away. So there was the rock and roll band saxophonist as an example. And at some point she's looking at movie posters that are up on the wall of some building that she's walking by. And one of the posters is Transformers 5. and bear in mind that this episode is 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this is a movie that had no writers. That was the entire point of the joke. I'm not sure that it was wrong.
No, not at all. I think it's spot on. Okay, let's go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. What are some of your do you have anything else you want to add kind of as a final thought on this movie?
I don't know. I think we've covered it pretty well. The summary is, I enjoyed it as being a big special effects spectacle, and because as much as any of these Transformers movies, I appreciate the fact that they do exist. It is not the direction I would go with them. They have little tiny redeeming nuggets, things that keep me holding on. But there's just so much crap in them. so much crap.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I do believe I'm not going to say Michael Bay because Michael Bay is what you get. There's actually I'm reading a book about the company of Disney company from 1984 until basically the present. And there's one there where they're talking about filming Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And the line is, we're pretty sure Michael Bay didn't read the script, and we're pretty sure Michael Bay doesn't read.
Yeah.
So
explain a lot.
He's not going to change, but I do feel that there's somebody or some people at the studio who are forcing a little bit of change, because there was less jokes in this one. I mean, as much as they're still terrible, there was less of them.
Yep.
And the movie was shorter, and it was seemingly, as much as it's not coherent, it was more coherent than some of them. So I think they're trying.
Than some of them. Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think as much as I don't even believe in the concept of what they're going for, that the Bumblebee standalone movie might be a little bit more telling about that theory.
Although that being said,
it's going to have a different director.
But they're going to stick him in the 80s when I want to see a World War II Bumblebee movie now.
I kind of do as well. They alluded to something that should have been really badass.
Yeah, now we're going to have hair metal.
And it's going to be really interesting to see exactly what they do with that movie, because it's going to have an antagonist, and theory says it's not going to be the government or
Megatron.
Megatron. So,
well,
yeah.
And they got to play it to where no one's going to remember it happened after the fact.
There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, and I guess that's the other thing is my biggest worry, and that's what I just said earlier, is I don't think anybody tracks continuity on these things. So as much as we're sitting here saying, like, it won't be Megatron and they'll have to do this and that, like, no, they don't.
He unfreezes for the weekend and goes back to his icebox.
Yeah, who knows? Literally anything could happen. But it will be interesting to see the first Transformers film that is not under the helm of Bay.
Yeah.
And
supposedly, this is his last one, supposedly. He said that last time, too.
We've heard that 4 times now, I'm pretty sure.
Marky Mark says it's his last one.
He may not have said it between 1 and 2, but no, Marky Mark says it is not his last one.
Oh, okay.
He contradicted what Bay said already. I think this is Marky Mark's last one, because he apparently does not enjoy making them.
I can't imagine why. He had to wear that wig for one thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I also, as much as Mark Wahlberg doesn't like it making these movies, I don't think people like seeing them anymore. And that's the one thing that we haven't really talked about. And that is, this is the low point in terms of income for the franchise. Even Age of Extinction, which was already seeing some fatigue, made over $100 million its first week of release. This one made $69 million, which is, it's still good. $69 million is not something like to posh at, but
yeah,
it's not good for a Transformers movie. These movies make billions of dollars, and $69 million start out, that's not good.
I agree, and I feel like it's only natural. There aren't many franchises that are going to carry to this number of sequels, and keep everyone's interest, especially a franchise that has no story, very little compelling about it except for explosive action. It's going to get people to go in on that Saturday and watch it, but it really is not going to have that same draw to keep people coming back time and time again. Hollywood doesn't get it, apparently.
Well, and the one thing Hollywood does get, for the most part, is when they start losing money, they don't like doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, because this movie was probably a $500 million movie at the minimum, probably closer to $600 million to make in market. I'm hoping when they lose their shorts on this thing, because they're going to lose their shorts on it, they realize that, one, Michael Bay isn't the moneymaker they thought he was, and maybe it's time to go in a different direction. And maybe this Bumblebee movie will be in a different direction, or maybe after that they realize they need to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, Bumblebee will almost certainly be different in some way.
I continue to hold out hope that they're going to have some good movie sooner or later.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the truth of it is, but I read something that said that number 6 was already confirmed as well. Like, it's laid out for the following year.
I read that from the producer, because he was talking about Bumblebee, and he was talking about the 80s motif, and then he said that our plan was in 2019 to have part 6. So they're definitely trying to roll this out. Everyone wants their franchise. Marvel's got their franchise, DC's got theirs, Universal's trying with the monsters, and Paramount's got Transformers. So they're going to have to milk it.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to see how that all pans out, and yeah, again, how well Bumblebee does, and then what effect that has on number 6 if if 6 isn't already in the can by then.
Well, they make these things pretty damn quick. But, I don't understand how they make these quick, but they do.
I agree. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And the thing about it that I'm starting to feel is inevitable, and part of me is actually excited for it if it actually happens, is the fact that eventually they'll have to do a reboot, because they'll realize that this continuity in whatever, such as it is, that Bay has started isn't going to carry the franchise any further, and that's what happens is they just press reset and they start over and take another run at it with a different direction.
And oh, please, will Peter Cullen live forever so I can have a good Peter Cullen?
Yeah, no kidding.
Please.
But yeah, so we'll see. It will be very interesting to see how Bumblebee turns out. I'm hanging on for that one, even though I'm objectively not that interested in it. And here's another interesting bit, and I'll just throw this out there as for what it is. I'm on Facebook. I'm in all these different groups, the communities on Facebook for Transformers fans, buying and selling toys and whatever. But there's been a lot, as you can imagine, a lot of discussion about The Last Knight and people's opinions of it. And the thing that I have gleaned, just from what I've kind of observed there, is that even among the Transformer fan community, there is absolutely no consensus about how people feel about this movie. And in fact, it swings incredibly violently from extremes. And you can probably say that about any franchise, but really it is like a 50-50 split of people who thought this was the best movie and people who thought this is the absolute worst. And it seems like not a lot of people sit in the middle, or at least not vocal ones.
Well, let's find out where we sit. So to kind of close this off, go ahead and give it a score, or not a score, but a grade, F to A. And then where do you put this in the franchise? Is it the best, the worst, somewhere in the middle?
Just rattle off my my ordering.
Go for it.
Sure. I don't know. I would give this. Honestly, I want to give this a C-.
Okay.
And I guess
so it passes. It graduates.
I guess
the
I
next
don't
term.
know what that does to all the other movies as far as the letter grade goes. I might write it down and reevaluate this, but
you're grading on a curve. I understand.
It has redeeming qualities, just like most of them do. They just don't choose to run with the redeeming qualities. Yeah, I didn't say 2. 2 has no redeeming qualities.
You said most, and I kind of squirmed, but it's okay.
There we go. Yeah, and so as far as the overall, man, I don't know. I look at it from a standpoint of potential, and I think that number 4 had the most potential. I think this one probably is the second favorite, just because I hate Shia LaBeouf that much.
He's toxic for you.
I don't even hate him that much. He's in good movies, or at least he has been. And then it's probably 1, 3, and 2.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be a harder grader, as I usually am. There's a reason why I don't teach high school anymore. But I'm going to give it a D. I think it had potential, and it failed miserably in most of those things. In terms of where it is in the franchise, it's one of the higher up ones. I still think, and I haven't watched it in years, but I think number 1 is still the best one for me. I didn't hate Age of Extinction. In fact, I remember when I came out of the theater in Seattle, I texted you immediately and said, this wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah. or as bad as you thought it would be, or, well, it was better than the last one.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what I was going to say is I think 5 would be the third one for me. And then Dark of the Moon would be 4. And then Revenge of the Fallen is just the worst pile of shit I've ever seen in my life.
It is, and we can agree on that one, can't we? It just was not a good movie in any way, shape, or form. I think I don't know. You think of 3 a little bit more harshly than I do. I actually think there was some potential in that one as well.
And I've only seen 3 once. I saw it with you in the theater, and that's one time I've seen it. So,
yeah,
I mean, maybe one of these days.
Number 1. Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I said, maybe one of these days when I want to gouge my eyeballs out, I'll watch it again, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think you'll find that it's not as bad The thing about number one, I want to like it a lot. There's a lot, in a way, there's a lot of heart in those first ones as well, and it felt like it had the most coherent story, such as it was. Yeah, I can't unsee Bumblebee pissing on John Turturro. I'm sorry. Every time I think about movie number one, that is the thing that pops into my head, and I'm just
There's a distinct lack of dicks and balls in this movie as opposed to the other ones.
Yes, and I feel like that humor was the most prevalent in one and two.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's why it really lowers number one for me compared to how I used to think about it.
I think I wear rose-colored glasses when I see that one, and I just ignore the stupid shit and watch the Transformers.
Yeah,
but I
could see
understand.
that.
I understand.
It is the nostalgic. It's become nostalgic. Let's face it. It's like how many years old now?
Yeah, I mean, when we saw it when we were out of college.
Just stop talking. I'm gonna get depressed.
Probably, yeah. We were out of college at that point, which says everything right there. But
yep.
Okay, well, now that you're depressed, let's go ahead and wrap this up. To our one viewer watching, hi. So you can find us at thefrontrowmoviereviews.com as always. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast where you can hear all of our full disclosures. We're going to be talking Spider-Man coming up pretty soon. We're going to be talking Apes and whatever else people go see in the theaters we'll be talking about. Then you can also find my show, Flashbacks, which we look at 80s and 90s movies, our classics, our Disney show, my Twilight Zone retrospective of every single episode. So there's tons of stuff to find at thefrontrowmoviereviews.com. And you can send your hate mail about me to thefrontrowmoviereviews@gmail.com. I love to read your hate mail. To Mike, again, thank you so much, buddy, for being on again. We'll get you on about something that's not Transformers, but I think this is a great way to segue you into the show.
Oh, yeah.
And so until next time, I am Scott, and with me has been
Mike.
And we will see you in the front row. Auf Wiedersehen.